The Bills beat Dallas to a pulp, 31-10. The final, the Cowboys' 5-game winning streak. Hey, goodbye. No more 5-game winning streak. Now, Josh Allen did nothing for Buffalo. He had 94 yards passing. That's it. The Bills get their 8th win. They're 8-6. They win consecutive games for the first time since their last winning streak, 3-game winning streak, ended back on October 1st, a month before Halloween. Buffalo did gain some ground, although not enough. The Bills gaining some ground in the AFC playoff race. They move 1 game ahead of Denver, who lost and got smacked by the Lions over the weekend, and Pittsburgh. And the problem is the top 7 teams get in. Buffalo's still outside. They're number 9, even though they've got that 8-6 record. Nothing else to talk about before we get to the Bills. I mean, we'll talk about the Bills plenty, but we're going to start with the better story, which is in the losing locker room, the Dallas side of things. The Cowboys fall a game behind the 49ers for the top record in the NFC. You also have Philadelphia, who plays Monday Night Football against Seattle. But the better story is on that Cowboys side of things, so let us discuss the question: what does this loss do to the resume of Dak Prescott and the Cowboys? Not just a loss, they were run off the field by the Buffalo Bills. So what do you do here? If you're looking objectively at the Dallas Cowboys, what does this loss do to the resume of Dak Prescott and the Cowboys? So I've got Rolex, Poltergeist, and Schnozola. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make the Baba Ganoush. Why not? We'll make the Baba Ganoush. We haven't made that often, so we'll make some Baba Ganoush now. Number one. Yeah, all right. Starting a new week. So number one. Yeah. So this performance by the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott gives credence to the argument that has been made by many wise pundits that the Dallas Cowboys are the same old Dallas Cowboys, that they've got the nice record just like in years past, but they're phony. They're phony. It wasn't even that cold in Buffalo. The argument would be, hey, it was a terrible weather day. We've seen bad weather at Bills games. This was not, by Buffalo standards, this was mild. This was mild. The conditions were mild in this game. And so the Cowboys have a sexy 10-4 record. Whee! 10-4. Woohoo! But they're not as good as their record. They're simply not as good as their record. And you take the magnifying glass out and you analyze the Cowboys, and it's like examining a Rolex watch. And there's a lot of fake Rolex watches out there all over the place, right? A fake Rolex looks really good from a distance, but you get a little bit closer and you start to notice the imperfections with the fake Rolex. And I'm not a watch person, but I'm told that a Rolex does not make a sound, but a fake Rolex will make a ticking sound. But a real Rolex doesn't make any sound. That's one example. The Cowboys are ticking. They're not the real McCoy, right? They're not the real Rolex. They're tick, 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 tick. Also, a Rolex supposed to be heavy and solid, right? The Cowboys are not heavy and solid. The Cowboys are light and flimsy, like a fake Rolex. That's the Cowboys. Now, what is my analysis based on? The inflated record. Look at the numbers. The Dallas Cowboys, they didn't have to travel for almost an entire month. 27 days, the Dallas Cowboys played Washington, a bad Washington team, Seattle, a bad Seahawks team. They got a losing record. Philadelphia, a good team, at home. All those games, 27 days at home. Dak Prescott has been an absolute stiff on the road, right? And the Cowboys in general, the Cowboys are 1-3 against teams that have a winning record. So they're 1-3. The win was against Philadelphia. They have a point differential of -38 in those games against teams that have a winning record. But wait, there's more. How about -58 for the Cowboys on the road against such teams? And you continue to break it down. It's just bad. It's bad. Dak Prescott has been lights out at home, and on the road He's been the same old Dak, and it's ugly. All right, now, turning the page. Page 2 here. Are Josh Allen and the Bills going to make the playoffs? Are they going to get in the postseason? They're not in now. Buffalo is not in now, but are they going to get into the postseason? Now, as you know, I'm a distant relative of Nostradamus and friend of Nostradamus, and the answer is it's foggy. That's the answer for the Buffalo Bills, even with this win. Now, this certainly does help. I'm not going to sit here behind these microphones and say that win does not help the cause. It absolutely does. Beating the Chiefs and the Cowboys back-to-back and belly-to-belly is massive. However, you also do not want to be a prisoner of the moment. And what I mean by that is the Buffalo Bills have a big mountain to climb still. Big mountain to climb here, and we are ambivalent when it comes to the Buffalo Bills here. Buffalo has the game in L.A. on Saturday, this coming weekend. They play the Chargers. Now, the Chargers just finally whacked their coach, Brandon Staley. So who knows what you're going to get. They're going to have a backup quarterback. It's hard to imagine that the Chargers will play any worse than they did on Thursday night against the Raiders. But that's a game. Okay, we'll give that game to the team from Western New York. So they'll win that game. Then you look ahead. You're like, okay, after that, you've got the Patriots. You already lost to the Patriots. So there's no guarantee. Game's in New York, so you figure, okay, maybe you'll win that game. But you lost to them. So if you lose to the Patriots once, you can lose to them twice. You certainly can. And then they close it out a game with the Dolphins in South Florida. So that's what's ahead. Are those games all winnable? Sure. Sure, they're all winnable games. Absolutely, they're winnable games. But regardless, football karma, if you believe in football karma, says that Josh Allen and the Bills are not going to get to the postseason. They're going to be haunted by poltergeist. And for them, their poltergeist, it's not just one ghost that's going to be haunting the Buffalo Bills to try to get into the postseason. They lost to 3 non-playoff teams. The Broncos at home, the Jets. That was a Zach Wilson game. Game 1. Remember that Zach Wilson played most of the game. Aaron Rodgers got hurt on the first series. Those 2 losses combined, you throw the Patriots in there, as we mentioned. So Patriots, Broncos, and Jets. 3 games. You show up, you win. They lose all 3. And now they're behind the 8 ball is where they are. And they deserve to be behind the 8 ball. That's a humiliation situation. Now, I would say if you lose to the Patriots, the way the Patriots have played this year, you should be eliminated from playoff consideration. And then you also toss in a loss to the Bengals. Now, the Bengals have bounced back since Joe Burrow went out with an injury. And Jake Browning, who had another pretty good performance against the Vikings over the weekend, Jake Browning has done better than anyone could have imagined. So I didn't think he would be any good. And so you lost that. And if it comes down to the Bills and Bengals for that final playoff spot in the AFC, advantage goes to Cincinnati because of a win with Joe Burrow earlier. All right, final point. We pivot away from the Buffalo-Dallas game, and we go to a team that played actually on Saturday, Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Steelers. They didn't play very well on Saturday, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They played well for a half. The Steelers lost to the Colts in a game that got lopsided there late. Mitch Trubisky started that particular game, and boy, does he stink. If you thought he was any good, that was a refresher course. He can't play. And the fact that this guy's been in the NFL as long as he's been in the NFL is fascinating to me. And that Chicago, actually 1 year he started, Trubisky in Chicago, the Bears actually had a pretty good record with him at quarterback, which is mind-boggling considering how his career has gone since that particular point. But get to the point, please. So if you're watching the Fox coverage, franchise legend, Pittsburgh franchise legend, Terry Bradshaw, former L.A. talk radio host, sports talk radio. Terry, I did a show. Terry was on before me. Anyway, Terry Bradshaw commenting on Fox, and he said that Kenny Pickett is the answer, is what he said. He's the answer at quarterback, but he said Pittsburgh has to get a better offensive line play, that they have to improve the offensive line. So that was his argument. So are you sold? The question is, are you sold, as Terry Bradshaw appears to be, are you sold that Kenny Pickett is the answer at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? So I have no skin in the game, but I'm going to shake my head no on this. And it's a small sample size, but we've seen 25 games of Kenny Pickett. And you can't blame it all on Matt Canada, right? Everyone's, oh, Matt Canada's fault. Matt Canada's long gone, and the team still sucks on offense. So it's not Matt Canada. But the answer to this is if you check your schnozola, and Kenny Pickett just does not pass the smell test. He does not pass the smell test. 25 games. You know how many games he's had as a quarterback in the NFL with 2 or more touchdown passes? 1. You know how many games he's had in the NFL with 2 or more interceptions? 3. Okay, 3 of them. He's had 1 game in his career so far with 300 or more yards passing. 3 games with less than 100 yards passing in his career. 5 games with 114 or less yards passing. And the offensive line, while it's not great in Pittsburgh, usually if you're a pretty good quarterback, you know how to get rid of the ball. You don't hold the ball for too long. The offensive line is not the problem. So I disagree with Terry Bradshaw's analysis on Kenny Pickett being the quarterback going forward for the Steelers. The jury is still out on whether he can play or not, and I would say it's leaning heavily towards he can't play.